Okay, we'll start with this. Reigning WBO welterweight champion Sandy Ryan took to her social media and stated, 5 weeks! Who's excited? To which Terry Harper replied with an emoji raising her hand. Sandy responded by asking, ready for a beating, champ?
Terry Harper's WBA champion at 154. Sandy's WBO champion at 147.
The fight is taking place at 147 for Sandy's WBO title. I don't think losing this fight will affect Terry's status up there at 154 with the WBA.
You think she's gonna lose?
I think it's a distinct possibility. I don't know who to favor. Should I favor Terry Harper's straight punches, her long-range punches, and her movement, or Sandy Ryan's hooks mid-range to inside and her size?
Even though Terry's the one at junior middle and Sandy's the one at welter, Sandy looks bigger.
It's because Sandy is bigger. Don't forget that Terry used to campaign all the way down there at 130 pounds. It's only in recent years she moved all the way up to 154. She's not a true junior middle.
Sandy's bigger.
I think stronger, too. I think she's bigger. I think she's stronger. I think she's more durable than Terry Harper, even if Terry is somewhat more experienced as a professional, more rounds in the bank, more fights.
Terry's got high-quality wins over Eva Wallstrom,
Katarina Tandis, Henna Rankin. Good experience in the Natasha Jonas fight that was scored a draw. Good experience in the Cecilia Brækhus fight that was scored a draw.
Been knocked out before, though.
I know, that's why I think Sandy Ryan is stronger and more durable. I think Sandy takes a better punch. I think that Sandy...
Got Sandy winning the fight?
I'm not sure. Sandy's not with Clifton Mitchell anymore. She left her longtime trainer, Clifton Mitchell, and the word is she's been training here in the United States under who, I don't know. But the fact that she's going into this fight, experimenting with a new corner, with a new trainer, I don't know what to make of it. Currently, Terry Harper ranks in at number 8 on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. If she wins, beats Sandy Ryan for her WBO title, that's another champion she beat, and that's a third division she will have become a champion in, which will be enough for her to advance ahead of Natasha Jonas from number 8 up to number 7. That's if Terry wins. If Terry loses,
she's off.
She's off the list, per the rules that govern it.
No fighter coming right off a loss, absent of a world title, is allowed to maintain a rank. The list is only for winners and only for champions. So if Terry loses, she's out, and Sandy is in. Once again, per the rules that govern the list, in defeating a pound-for-pound fighter, you become one yourself. Now, Sandy
doesn't have the same body of work as Terry Harper, so she won't rank as highly on the list. She'll likely come in at number 10, at the very bottom.
Remember that if Terry were to win, that would make her a 3-division champion, whereas if Sandy wins, she's only ever been a champion at one weight.
When she fought for the WBO title, it was vacant. She didn't win it from anyone. She didn't beat a champion in order to be a champion. Beating Terry Harper would strengthen her resume. It would, but...
And it might be enough to get her on the list, but she won't rank very highly, not based on her body of work so far. She'd come in at number 10 at the very bottom, in the most danger of being bumped off by somebody else with a better resume.
That situation, unified champion of Mexico, Jessica Niri Plata, would advance to number 8. Marlon Esparza would advance to number 9, and Sandy would come in at number 10.
Until such a time as someone comes along with a better resume and bumps her off. Because Sandy, God bless her, she doesn't have a lot of fights. She's good, she's very good, but those eggs need more bacon.
And just the act of beating Terry Harper in what would be Terry's 3rd weight class, her 3rd division, that only gets you so far. You need to do more. Still, a very intriguing matchup, and it's hard to call. It's tough because Sandy's got size and power and durability, but she's experimenting with a new trainer. At the same time, Terry's
been knocked out before. She was knocked out by a naturally smaller woman in Alicia Baumgartner.
The outcome of this match isn't quite clear to me under these circumstances, though I do get the sense it's going to be a good fight while it lasts.
And we'll talk more about it as the fight date approaches.
In other news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Canelo Alvarez has confirmed that there is no chance he will fight Terence Crawford, saying, I have nothing to gain and everything to lose. If I beat him, everyone will say he was too small.
Isn't that what they were saying about Jermell?
It's what some people are saying, though at the same time, Canelo said his opponent will be an American. He will be from the United States.
Here's what we know.
Canelo says He's not fighting Crawford. He's too small. Some people thought it would be Jermall Charlo up until Jermall Charlo 2 days ago said he hasn't talked to anybody about fighting Canelo and he hasn't spoken to Al Heyman since last year.
So it's not Crawford and it's not Charlo.
That leaves David Benavidez, and I would think it's David Benavidez, except David's promoter, Samson Lukowicz, recently spoke to Pro Box TV and said that the Canelo fight isn't happening this year. It's not happening.
So then who the fuck is he fighting?
I'm not as interested in this subject as some other people. I'm tired of it and tired of hearing about it because it's all we've been hearing about since Canelo Alvarez's last fight last year.
People won't shut the fuck up about it.
Though looking at this and what rumors are spinning, what rumors are out there, if I had to guess what's happening, what's going on, you have to remember that when Canelo Alvarez inked that 3-fight deal with the PBC, Showtime was still in the picture. Showtime was their broadcast partner. All of that changed late last year.
Showtime's not with them anymore.
So what if the money to pay Canelo Alvarez his guarantees, fight by fight, was supposed to be coming from Showtime, but now Showtime isn't in the picture anymore?
Amazon is.
But who's to say that Amazon is making the same financial commitment to the PBC that Showtime was making up until last year? Who's to say that they took on that responsibility? The responsibility to get Canelo Alvarez $35 million or in excess of $35 million per fight. Who's to say they took that burden on? We don't know that.
That they're gonna give him his guarantee.
We don't know that. How are any of these fights supposed to happen if the PBC cannot honor the existing agreement?
How?
How is any of it supposed to happen? A Crawford fight, a Benavidez fight, or some other fight. How is any of it supposed to happen if the PBC doesn't have Showtime to bankroll fights for them anymore? If the situation has changed, how is any of it supposed to happen?
A lot of the people talking about this are too immature to wrap their minds around that. That when Canelo entered that deal, Showtime was in the picture, but now they're not in the picture anymore.
You don't think that matters? You don't think it matters that when he entered into that deal, the broadcast partner was Showtime. Now it's a new broadcast partner with a different deal structure. You don't think that matters?
Then you must be stupid or trolling.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who he's going to fight. He says he's going to fight an American, but that American, well, it's not Terrence Crawford.
No.
And it doesn't look like it's Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo said he hasn't spoken to anybody about fighting Canelo, and he hasn't heard from Al Heyman since last year.
So it's not Charlo?
Not according to Charlo, but it's not Benavidez either. It's not Benavidez according to Samson Lukowicz. So I don't know who he's fighting.
I don't know.
But if it's the way that Samson Lukowicz says, that the Canelo versus Benavidez fight will not happen at any point this year, what you then have to ask is, okay, David, what are you going to do? What's the plan? What's the strategy? If you know with an absolute certitude that you're not fighting Canelo Alvarez next, who are you fighting?
You want to call Canelo a duck? Call him a duck. Say no one defends him. Say no one argues with you about that. Say they call him a duck too.
You don't get any pushback on it, and everybody agrees. The question still is, David, what are you going to do now? What's the plan? What's the strategy?
It's not David Morrell.
What do you mean it's not David Morrell?
You didn't hear what Samson Lukowicz said? Along with all the recent revelations and all the new information that's coming out, Samson Lukowicz said he admits that he's the reason the David Morrell fight hasn't happened yet. In spite of what he said at the beginning of last year, that they signed the contract to fight David Morrell, he comes out now and says that the reason that fight hasn't happened is because of him. He's responsible. He doesn't want those two guys to fight until they both have belts.
Does that sound familiar?
Well, it's because it is. That's more or less the same strategy he used when it came to Caleb Plant. When they both did have belts, he didn't want to do it right away. He wanted to wait.
We've talked about that to no end, and it seems like he hasn't learned his lesson. He's still employing that same strategy, and I know what the strategy is. The strategy is, it's Canelo or nobody.
Nobody with a pulse.
It's Canelo or nobody. Canelo or bust. They're not going to fight any live dogs. They're not going to fight any live animals. They're not going to fight David Morrell.
And don't expect them to move up the light heavyweight either. Don't expect them to pursue the winner of Better Be versus Bivol. They're not going to do that either.
So what are they going to do?
I don't know.
3 months into this year, the PBC have only announced one show. Rumor has it there's going to be a complete blackout in April. These are just rumors. Don't shoot the messenger. But the rumor now is they're not going to do any shows in April. They were presumably going to do Canelo Alvarez's next fight in May, but now that's in jeopardy?
Don't shoot the messenger. This is just what's out there.
Blackout in April, and then presumably Canelo in May if Canelo stays with them. We don't know if he's going to. If he doesn't,
And if he's not fighting David,
if he's not fighting David, when is David fighting? When is David going to get back out there? How many times is he going to fight this year? Is he going to fight at all? Who's he going to fight?
not David Morrell.
So do you see what the problem is? You can sit there belly aching about Canelo Alvarez and calling him every name in the book, but that doesn't actually remedy David's situation, because the whole Canelo or nobody strategy, it's Canelo or bust, it doesn't work.
It didn't work for Demetrius Andrade. It's not gonna work for you.
What do you think? What do you think? You think the WBC is going to strip him of the title so that they can give it to you? They let Jermall Charlo hang on to his title for 2.5 years without defending it, and you think they're going to take Canelo's belt from him?
To give it to you.
Are you on drugs?
You must be. You'd have to be if that's what you're waiting for. You can bellyache, you can bitch and moan about Canelo as much as you like. It's not going to remedy David's situation. If you're not fighting, you're not making money, you're not amassing fandom.
When is David fighting?
Who is David fighting? You can bitch and moan about Canelo as much as you want. He's still the top earning boxer in the sport. He can retire right now and get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
He's not strapped for cash.
You don't like the sound of that, but that's reality. That's the truth. That guy's not hurting for money.
But what about David?
You're making your entire career and your entire schedule of activity around a guy you can't rely on because you can't control him.
Is that the best strategy?
I feel like I've spent enough time on this because it's boring. It's boring watching these guys line up single file waiting for a Canelo Alvarez fight like that's the only fight out there.
If he doesn't fight you, what are you gonna do?
We know what your fans are going to do. They're going to bitch, they're going to moan, they're going to bellyache, they're going to cry and complain, but none of that is going to help you. What are you going to do?
Who fucking cares?
The argument can certainly be made that because Canelo Alvarez is this division's undisputed champion and David is his mandatory, he's holding up the division.
And some blame can be assigned, but blame must also be assigned to the WBC, who refuses to impose a deadline on Canelo. And they said that in plain English. There's no time scale on the Benavidez mandatory.
Some blame must also be assigned to the PBC, who, when they entered into this deal with Canelo Alvarez, it was on the presupposition that Showtime would still be their broadcast partner. Their situation has changed.
Is that Canelo Alvarez's fault?
Are they able to honor the terms, the agreed upon terms of this deal, now that their situation has changed? I think that's a factor that is being overlooked, because it's easy to blame Canelo Alvarez for everything. It's harder.
It's harder to be objective.
And the ones who aren't belly aching about that are belly aching that he's not fighting Terence Crawford. You do have to wonder, where does that leave a 36 going on 37-year-old Terence Crawford, who had his heart set on a showdown with Canelo Alvarez at 168? If that's not happening,
Should he fight Boots?
here we go with the Boots again. What about Boots? Why can't he fight Boots? The same Boots who's in the process of suing his old promoter in order to achieve free agency. The same Boots we talked about in a previous video.
Hey, are you guys retarded or something?
Slow, you're delayed, you're on a spectrum. What's going on? Because in order for Boots to fight Crawford, somebody has to pay them. Somebody has to pay for it. So who's going to pay for it?
You think they're gonna fight for free?
To my knowledge, Crawford's not actually with the PBC, and the extent of his arrangement was centered around an Errol Spence Jr. fight or Errol Spence Jr. fights. Jaron Ennis is still contracted to Now Boxing, Cameron Duncan's old promotional company, but Cameron died and the promotional company went to his wife.
He's got to settle this in court before he can achieve free agency. To go with a PBC, to go with an Al Heyman, or somebody else.
A more feasible fight, more feasible, at least in theory, is a Terence Crawford versus Teofimo Lopez fight. The good people at the Boxing Voice say they spoke to Paco Veracel on Teofimo Lopez considering activating his WBO Super Champion status to force Terence Crawford into a fight.
Paco's the president of the WBO.
Paco said Crawford has 18 months since he fought Spence to fulfill any mandatory commitment. It hasn't been 18 months since the Errol Spence Jr. fight.
Well, it doesn't have to be for Top Rank to make him an offer. If Teofimo is serious and they're behind this fight, you don't have to wait 18 months to get the ball rolling. You can make him an offer now.
That's why I said in theory. That's why I said theoretically, because I don't know for sure. I don't know that we can believe that this is a fight that Teofimo really wants until the gears start moving and the wheels are in motion. At this point, it's just talk. They're just headlines.
For you to do this, Top Rank has to get behind you because you're not a free agent.
Teofimo is contracted to Top Rank, so for this to go down, they would have to foot the bill. They would have to pay for it. Do they want to?
Do they make Crawford an offer? Does he like the offer? Does he bite? And do they do the fight?
You ask me, why is this fight more feasible than a Jaron Boots Ennis fight? And it's because this situation isn't as complex.
You know that you may as well be speaking Chinese to these idiots.
I might. But for those with functioning brain cells, the reason that Lopez versus Crawford is slightly more feasible is because we know who's behind Lopez and what they've got. We know what platform he fights on. We know where the money would come from. That if he's serious about doing the fight, Terrence isn't otherwise preoccupied with anything.
And it would be up to Top Rank to pay for it. But with Boots, who pays for a Boots fight?
Who pays for that fight? Cameron Duncan? Cameron Duncan is in the ground. Cameron Duncan is dead.
Not that when he was alive he had a major financier, because he didn't.
But he's in the ground, and his company that Boots is still signed to, it went to his wife, who isn't even a boxing person.
So do you see what the problem is, or do I need to say it slower?
Lopez versus Crawford is theoretically more viable because there's less ambiguity. You know who promotes Teofimo Lopez. You know where the money would come from to do Lopez versus Crawford, and you know what platform would air it. The ESPN platform. The only question is Lopez serious, or is he just talking to have articles written about him? Is he just stirring the pot?
Because if he's not, then the fight can happen, and Terrence Crawford can put him in the hospital.
There's only one way that fight ends. Make no mistake. There's only one way Crawford versus Lopez ends, and that's with Teofimo Lopez on a stretcher.
On his way to Presbyterian.
Crawford knocks him out. Crawford knocks him out. He puts him down. He puts him in the hospital, is what Crawford does. Stylistically, it's a horrible fight for Lopez, but it's a fight that he says he wants.
So give him what he wants.
Make the fight.